Harsha Padmanabha. He is the co-founder of Visarity Technologies, a true digital native with a passion for all things graphics. Harsha has over 20 years experience working in graphics technologies and marketing them. In that time, he has worked on developing casino games at Vision Gaming, Cadillac Jack and Bailey. Having exhausted his good karma credits and with the aim of delivering best-in-class 3D visualization for the mobile and embedded world, Harsha led product design, technology and marketing teams in developing among the first mobile GPUs for the automotive industry. These technologies have now been embedded into cars from Audi, Visarity, Ford, Mercedes. Over the last couple of years, he has dabbled in mobile games, developing tools and technologies for AR and VR. So here we welcome Harsha. Round of applause for Harsha. May I request Atulji to present a bouquet to Harsha?
Thank you.
Thank you, Atulji. Thank you, Harsha. The stage is all yours.
So before I start, just a few questions. How many of you have really looked at something, virtual reality, augmented reality, or played with it? Quite a few of you. So what did you experience? Cardboard, Oculus, or just mobile? Google Glasses. Good. You?
Both of them. So I have cardboard, I have tried Oculus, and I'm trying to evaluate integrating and how much more.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Good. So it's been a buzzword for a few years, right? Everybody wants to experience VR. Everybody has heard about VR. It's kind of new and exciting. So what I will do in this session is just take you over what it really was a few years back and why it has come to the forefront now, and what are the few emerging things that's happening around the globe, and then how can we do something here in India. Right? We have heard so much about it. We have so much talent here. We do a lot of animation. We do a lot of graphics related to animation and so on. And how can we leverage this to do something and deploy? India is a mobile country anyway. So over the last few days, there's been something exciting that's happening in the mobile space, right? So how many of you have heard about this or you know about this? Take a guess. Sorry? Yeah, correct. So Pokemon Go was released actually not just recently. The version is 0.30 or 0.29. It was released nearly about 2.5-3 years ago. First by the Google Maps team, and nobody noticed. And then when Pokemon took it over and said we'll create a more interesting game out of it, now everybody starts noticing it. If you're in India, you can't get access to Pokemon, but if you're really interested, try it. Go to APK Mirror. Just download the APK and you will be surprised that you will find a few Pokemons. Right? There are a lot more in Bangalore, much less probably here in Kolkata, but you should give it a try. It's an experience that you will try to enjoy. So a bit of history. Right? What really started this and when it was kind of conceptualized. So it was way back, right, in the Renaissance era. So Renaissance is something like 1500, 1600 time frame. And the Italian painters back then wanted to give some depth into what's happening into art and architecture. So they virtually painted this on the walls of this church in Vienna. And when you go up, you actually think as though it's real, it's a high ceiling, but it's just a painting with dimension. There's also a guy in Bangalore who does this. He looks at potholes and then he paints these potholes. So if you're driving by from a car and you look at it from 20-30 feet, you will as though feel an alligator is coming out of this pothole, or water is trying to flow back or water is trying to come out. So this is giving a visual perception. So VR or AR is not kind of new, but it's old, and we are just giving it a more noticeable feel and thing to it. So this is one more, right? Robert Baker, he was an English painter, and he actually coined this term panorama. And what he did was he painted huge masterpieces, and there were galleries. So what you see there as people standing are really galleries, and the back of it is a painting. Although the picture does not do much credit to it, you can Google for Robert Baker, and you will find there are huge paintings. And they did exhibits in London, in New York, and everywhere. He only painted Edinburgh, and it as though felt that you can look at the city from a deck. Right? So, and in the 19th century, they started looking at what can we do with stereoscopic. This is what today you see as a modified cardboard, really jazzed up Oculus Rift and so on. And then in University of Utah, Professor Ida Sutherland actually hooked up the first head-mounted display. They were actually called the tentacles because they had this, you can't see it on the top, you'll see this kind of tentacles coming out. And he hooked up the first head-mounted display and looked at it from what we see today as again, the Oculus Rift and so on. Again, to emphasize, VR is not really new, right? The first paper on VR was published back in the 1960s, and then later on, there were so many other papers, and there was actually a society that was formed, the VR Virtual Reality Society, which published more and more papers and concepts around this. And actually, NASA in the 80s and the 90s used head-mounted display to train astronauts, especially for spacewalks. So why is it different now, right? We know that the iPhone was not the first device to actually come out with a touch display, but everything was made compact. If you Google on YouTube, or if you go on YouTube and search for Bill Gates talking about Surface, it was way back in 2002, right? He talked about Surface, but it never really picked up. So why is it different now? Couple of things. Right? It's just economies of scale. Today, your mobile phone is kind of available for somewhere between 5,000 to whatever 25,000. And if you really want to show off, you can have the iPhone, pay 60 grand for it. And displays, which are primary source of what we want to do in virtual reality, are really cheap. So that's why it has come into the forefront. Right? And big companies like Facebook and Google have put in a lot of time, money, effort into bringing this and popularizing it among us folks. So if you look at different devices today, right, the most popular one has been the cardboard because it's just so easy to get. There are a few folks in India actually who are doing cardboards, who brand it, kind of do something with it, and it's available for as little as 30 rupees. You can get a cardboard device for so cheap. And if you're really lucky, you will see that one of the brands are doing something and you might get it for free. And the Samsung Gear is kind of the next tier of mobile devices. The Gear itself is available for $100 or 700 rupees or 7,000 rupees, but you have to have the phone. And there are only 4 phones, and the cost of the phone is around $600, $700. So you would end up spending $800 for the entire setup itself. This is what we call as tethered devices. So it's just not that you buy this head-mounted displays, but you need a PC with it. It's just the configuration is such a way that the performance that is needed for these kind of devices need a really high-end PC. So you're looking at a high-end PC that would cost 60 to 70,000 rupees plus another 40 to 50,000 rupees for this devices itself. So I'll come to the next one. Where do you want to get started? So this is ideal for somebody who is trying to do a real branch out an event or things like this. But for enthusiasts to start off, the mobile and the cardboard are much more easier to catch hold of and start doing something with it. And Microsoft is yet to release their HoloLens, but this is what they call as mixed reality devices. Mixed reality is that you wear this, it's like Google goggles, but you see a more interactive experience that you can possibly look for in real world, right? And there is a developer edition of this device available, and it's very expensive. It's currently $850, and then again you have to have a PC with it. So the tech for VR, it's great. We talked about what happened previously, how the emergence of VR started, and then we'll slightly talk about tech for VR and what it really takes to do something in VR. Right? So have any of you actually taken out a cardboard and seen what it has in it? So this is a high-end device, but I'm just talking about the cardboard, like the cardboard. Right? The cardboard, what basically it does is it has two lenses, spherical lenses, and it's made of plastic. That's what makes it really cheap. Right? And then you put it on, you see stereoscopic display. So they went ahead and actually modified it, and they said, how can we achieve better performance and better transformation in a device? So I don't know if you can see the red dot, but what it is a display, a very high-end display. It's two nearly 1080p displays on either side, a bunch of sensors, and these are the two lenses that I was talking about, right? So there are two lenses in the back, and it provides you this stereoscopic vision. You can, so OSVR is another brand. What they have done is they have open sourced the complete spec of their headset, and anybody can build it. So if you have the time, money, and you can try to build an headset yourself. I would not recommend it, but it's openly available. So the architecture of something like this, what happens when you plug in this headset? Right? The headset is connected over USB to your PC, and the PC has a graphics card, a really high-end graphics card, and then there's an HDMI cable that gets connected back into the headset. Unfortunately, my schedule was picked up in a very short time. Otherwise, I would have got a couple of devices so that you could kind of experience. So maybe next time when there's an opportunity, I can do that. But if not, you can write to me later. I have many of the cardboards. If you're interested, I can send you one of these. So what happens is when you plug in this device, you basically are transformed to another world because of the entire setup. And what makes it really fascinating is that by the time you do something with it, like you shake your hand and something happens on the display, it's less than 20 milliseconds. Otherwise, you will feel that you're sickened by this, what they call a seasickness or motion sickness. Right? So this 20 millisecond is like the bare minimum reaction time for these high-end systems. This is not the case with mostly mobile devices. Mobile devices kind of require, they have much more leniency in terms of what they can achieve in this time frame. So what is stereoscopic rendering? Right? This is where the magic kind of happens. So in your traditional or what we call as mobile display, there's just one frame that gets rendered on the entire screen. Right? So for VR to work, what has to be done is you take a movie frame or any frame as such and render it twice, one for the left eye and one for the right eye, and they both have to be synchronized. So if there is a delay, then your eyes will clearly notice this delay. So there has to be no delay in when it's rendered in stereoscopic. So again, the reason why these headset devices require high-end systems is you're rendering twice. So you think about a movie and the movie is playing twice on the same screen. That's how the stereoscopic rendering kind of works. So if I'm fast, let me know. And if you have any questions, just feel free to raise your hand and ask those questions. It's like two movies running at the same time. It is like two movies. So if you see here in this case, right, it's the same frame that gets rendered for the left eye and right eye. So it's like if you close your eye on one side, you know, it's again the same frame. But both have to be synchronized, otherwise you don't get that vision of depth and so on. So you know, this is great. You know, we talked about headsets. We talked about what these headsets require from a technology standpoint to deliver AR or VR, and then we also thought about the previous history of AR and VR and how it all came about. So the biggest question is, okay, all this is great, I can buy a device, but how can I create content? Content is always a very challenging step when something new platform has come about. It's easy to create content for the web, but if we take even this presentation, to generate content for this presentation itself is a hard thing, because you need to think about the flow, you need to think about what imagery will go with it and so on. For a new platform like VR, it's even more harder, not only because you have to think out of the box you have never been used to, it's all in three-dimensional. So let's, I'll show you what currently the scenario is in content creation and what can be done. Right? So there are basically 4 different things you can think about doing content creation in VR space. Right? You can create a 360 video. Of course, you need a setup for this 360 video, and you can post it onto YouTube and Facebook. Or you can use your mobile and take panoramic shots of a landscape or anything that you can think of, and then you can host it on different places. Even YouTube supports it. If you want to do, Facebook supports panoramic pictures. Or you can actually go on GitHub, and there is something called as VR Pano, and it gives you the entire HTML setup that you can host your own panoramic shots. Then it's about creating 3D content, and how you go about creating custom 3D content using game engines that are available. So we'll talk about videos and then talk about game engines and so on. So 360 video, right? It's very popular. You will see a lot of 360 videos that are available on YouTube. If you have a cardboard, like I said, just pop in the cardboard and start looking at these 360 videos. They're really popular, some of them. So there are a couple of ways 360 videos are captured. Right? The Ricoh Theta is the cheapest device that you can get today. It works on its own. They give you the software to actually stitch the 360 that you have taken. And then there's the Samsung camera that's recently released. It's much harder to get the Samsung camera because it has a lot more capability, and it has a lot, for the money that's paid, it's really a much better device than the Ricoh Theta. It can really give you 1080p and sometimes even 2K videos. There's a higher end version that can give 4K videos, but if you're starting off, I would recommend the Ricoh Theta. It's nicer, it's easier, and you can just record it with a small stick. Right? There is a sensor on the camera that comes with Samsung, so you can position it and you can press a button and it will slowly rotate on its axis, and you can take a 360 video out of it. So this was really done by enthusiasts. How many of you heard of GoPro? So GoPros are really popular. So what people did was, GoPros that you can buy, and they said, let's rig up GoPro to do a 360. So this rig has about 6 cameras in it. You can get a higher end version that has 16 cameras. You can get an even higher end version that has 32 cameras. So it depends on how many frames you want to shoot at what the setup is in the outdoor to do such a thing. The mount itself is called Freedom 360. You can get it on the internet, and then you can buy the camera separately, or you can buy the mount and then you can borrow from your friends, different GoPros and put it together. And this is a rig that was released by Google. They have not released this in India. It's mostly in the US, and you can actually rent it from Google. You don't have to pay for it. It's called Google Jump, and you can rent it on a per day basis or on a weekly basis. So they have so many rigs available, and they've open sourced how they've stitched these 16 cameras together. So somebody can actually 3D print it, or they can fabricate it, and you can really shoot a very wide array of 360 at nearly 60 frames per second in full 4K resolution. So this is mostly for cinematic 360 if somebody is really into doing a movie or a documentary based on 360 videos. What journalists have done is actually take this GoPro setup, and they've gone and just recorded 360 as a reporting medium. Right? It's your regular DSLR, if you take it, is already more expensive than this setup, but now it's a new medium of you narrating it. So a journalist actually from ABC, when first Cuba opened up, before Obama went to Cuba, he did a tour of Cuba with the 360 camera, and it's available online on USA Today. And you can actually look at Cuba in all its glory in 360. Right? It's something amazing, because you have the 1960s cars in Cuba and all the architecture that's really old, and the guy is roaming around with his 360 camera. So of course, once you take the 360, you need some post-processing to do it. And there are just 2 softwares available to kind of do the post-processing today. So one is called Color. It's released by GoPro, and the other one is Video Stitch. Right? So both are not really expensive, because they want to promote the software, and they want to promote really the cameras and not so much on the software. So both are really cheap. I think it's below $100 to get the software itself. So the distribution, right? You can upload huge videos onto YouTube or Facebook, and both of them encourage you to do this, and they will also help you promote these videos. So there's a difference, right? If you upload just a video onto YouTube, there's really no support. It's up to you to promote it and start getting customers. But if you upload a 360, YouTube will kind of give you that enhanced feel on the YouTube area, where you can promote much better, and they themselves will help you promote it. So if you do the 360 video, you can get much better audience than just regular 2D. So there are a few caveats. YouTube videos will only run on YouTube. On the desktop browser, it's on Chrome and on Mozilla, but on the mobile, it's only on the app. It wouldn't run on Chrome on Android, for example. It's just because of constraints on the device itself. The mobile is just not capable of supporting 360 rendering, which is really bigger than 1080p to render on this small mobile device. So that's why they kind of only put it on an app. And it wouldn't run on Safari. If you're using a Mac, better download Chrome and not use Safari. So there are a few caveats, and it will slowly, get better and better as things go about. So what would be the total cost of production, right? Everybody asks this. What is the total cost of production of doing a 360 video? So if you outsource this, it typically costs somewhere between $5,000 to $10,000 for a typical video, which is quite expensive, right? But that's the cost of it, because somebody has to travel somewhere. They have to have the audio guy. Because even if you do a small video production, even if you take 1 minute segment or a couple of minutes of segment, it will cost you a couple of lakhs already. And 360 is a bit more expensive because of the camera and the people that are involved in it. So if you think about a guy actually taking up a 360 video production, there's no one frame that a director can look into, right? Because action can happen left, right, center, or in the back. So where would a director kind of look into this 360 frame? So it's kind of very hard for them to visualize, and there are only a few people who can do this. So how do we take VR to market, right? Are there experiences that people have already done, and what's already available, and so on? There are a few fun things that people have done, right? And I'll be candid about a few other things that are actually coming to India. So brands are the first ones to kind of jump into any new medium because they want to attract people, and any experience is something that people will remember rather than reading something or even seeing a movie and so on. The recall on something experiential is much higher when you compare it to reading something on newspaper or watching a small ad and so on. You'll always remember an experience much better. So of course, we did not lag behind, and Tata Motors was very upcoming in doing the campaign for the new car Tiago, and they actually produced a huge ad on the newspaper, and in the newspaper they embed a Google Cardboard like this. And this cardboard you can assemble, and you could pop in and look at the video in 360. And it was very, very popular. They spent a lot of money on this campaign, and they gave out a lot of cardboards. This is the fun thing, right? How many of you have gone on a roller coaster ride anywhere? So only a couple, right? If you come to Bangalore, there's something called Wonderla, and you can take a roller coaster ride in Wonderla. And what they did in Six Flags is, because every time you go up and come down, it's kind of same experience, and they wanted to give a different experience to people each time they get on the roller coaster. So they got a lot of Samsung gear and the phone, and they asked you to wear this. Now you can actually go to Six Flags and kind of rent it. And every time you go on this roller coaster, you can experience a different roller coaster. You can be a Superman sometimes, or you can be a Transformer setup, like the Transformers movie. And every time it's a different experience. So this is how it looks like. So if you're going down, it's as though you're going down in a building, and you hit the floor and you suddenly jump up. So this is actually coming to India. And Wonderla is actually starting a pilot program in doing this roller coaster rides, and you can rent the Samsung gear to experience. So what it provides for such kind of experience is every time you go on this roller coaster, it's something different, and you'll remember. You love. Right? When I went to Singapore, there's this Transformers ride, and kept on going back again to get that feel of riding the Transformers. But every time you go, you have the same. The first time is great. Second time it kind of comes down, and the third time it's like, oh, I've experienced this twice. But in this case, you can switch, like I said, from Superman to being Batman or something else for every roller coaster ride. And somebody said IKEA catalog, right? And of course, IKEA was the first to kind of start with this and said, can you configure your kitchen? Can you configure your home? And so on. And again, we have an instance here in India where Common Floor kind of tried to do this with their app and device. They launched Common Floor cardboard glasses where you could experience any home. But it's much more exciting, right? Pwn obviously are the first guys to catch on to anything that's a new platform on the internet. So they were the first guys to get on the internet. They were the first guys to get on video on demand. So obviously they didn't want to lag behind on this. And now you can get, virtual reality porn. Although I don't know how it works. I haven't tried one, but it's something to foresee. So this is already happening. Like NHL, which is hockey, which the US guys call hockey, is already shot in 360. And something in the very near future that's coming up is the Olympics, right? So the big games in the Olympics, like track and field, swimming, gymnastics, will all be shot in 360. And YouTube has actually paid for the content to be uploaded on YouTube, so anybody can watch this 360 video. And like I said, journalism. So Aleppo, which was completely war-torn city, was shot in 360, and it was a company called Jaunt which actually went to Aleppo, which did a complete series on 360 video, and they posted it online, and they won a lot of awards for doing it, because it shows the kind of devastation on a city when it's completely ruined by war and what happens to it. So live entertainment. I always dreamt about going to a Michael Jackson concert and hearing and looking from it. And sometimes when you go to this concert, you have the visual very far away and you have the audio, but you go there for the experience and to be with friends and so on. But if the experience itself comes to you, and with the audio which is very, very high quality, you really enjoy a concert, right? So live entertainment is also another area. So these are all examples that have already happened, right? These are not that either coming in future or so on. So these are all things that have already happened. And Google actually made a software where you can start designing in virtual reality. They call it Tilt Brush. So somebody who is doing modern art. So this is all like painting, right? It's all done in 3D, but it's all painted in virtual reality, and it's beam. So you can actually wear an Oculus and go around this painting and look at it in 3-dimensional. And of course, real estate. Everybody loves real estate. If you're buying a house, what you do is you typically go and look at an apartment, then they take you to the model apartment, you look at 4 rooms, 2 rooms, 3 rooms, whatever it is. But then there's no balcony or something, right? As soon as you go there, it's just flat. Imagine that you could go there, step in, and you could really look down from the 13th floor and how it looks. And this is possible, and you can do this with virtual reality. Education. This, of course, is a shot that's taken from the HoloLens that I showed before, where people can gather around this 3D model and each one can experience or educate themselves very differently to each other. It's looking, if you look at the human biology and want to look at a 3D model and it's standing right there in front of you, and you kind of go around, and that's what you really want to do, right? It's more exciting to do it that way. And in India, Google is launching Cardboard with an app on a tablet and giving it to a few schools. So where teachers can control what the students see using the Google Cardboard and the phones that they have. And I think for India, if we are able to develop content and then give it to kids They can look at the solar system in 3D. It's a, much better than teacher showing a globe and spinning it around and doing stuff. So these are exciting mediums that are coming up, that have already been deployed, and so on. So of course, manufacturing. The amount of training that goes into aircraft maintenance or goes into anything that's related to manufacturing is enormous. Right? Even if you take a simple case of you going and leaving your car for service, it's a very time consuming. The guy says, sir, something is wrong with the tie rod, or he changed the brakes. You exactly don't know what happened. You just believe that something happened with the brakes, something happened with the tie rod. But if they show it to you, it's much more fascinating, kind of to learn about what happens to this. So there's a lot more opportunities in manufacturing as enterprises are investing more. This has already started. So Boeing has invested a lot of money into teaching all their staff in MRO, which is maintenance, into finding out faults in the aircraft, allowing technicians to kind of play with it, and so on. So these are all great examples, right? But of course, people have, how do we achieve this? What can we do in this space? Can I get a water? So till now, any questions? So it depends on what kind of audience, right, you're looking for. If it's a very large audience that you want to go and publish something, then go mobile, take one of the cardboards or the Samsung Gear and publish it. If it is like an audience like this and it's more curated, it's very small, then you could go for high-end devices like the Oculus or the HTC Vive. And even if it's like the real estate example I talked about, right, which is a very controlled environment, and you don't have large like groups of people coming in, but you have very specific people coming in. The experience could be much better if you kind of do it with high-end devices. Right? So if you are doing with a cardboard, right, most cardboards today is something where you can get it branded, and then you can kind of either give it away for free, or you price it so low that people have an incentive to just get the experience itself, right? But I would encourage that if you're an owner of a brand, or if you're trying to do something with it, just give away the cardboards for free. It's much more, people will be much happier. So New York Times actually they distributed 1.6 million cardboards for free. So anybody who subscribed to their newspaper, they just gave it away free. And just like Times of India, you have this Alive, and you can take your mobile and scan this Alive stuff and something comes about to life. They have similarly a cardboard, but you have to pop in your mobile and then you can look at something. And the other one is a German newspaper, Die Welt. It's something that I was associated with. And we did this for the newspaper publication in Germany, where if you subscribe to the newspaper, you get the cardboard. Every 6 months you get a new cardboard, and the app that comes along with it is something that you can experience news every day. Excuse me. So there are a couple of things you need to think about, right? Who are your audience? And what is the ROI you want to derive from it? Because it's very, very hard when you think about brand building versus education, or for different segments, it's just different ways of looking at the ROI, right? and always execute it with a good partner. So if you have, usually agencies are a good way, or if there are individuals who kind of know what the space is, it's better to go and execute with them. So if you are a developer, if you are an entrepreneur, and you want to dabble with 360 or with VR, right? So these are all technologies or game engines that are readily available, where you can go and start developing something. So Unity is free for anybody who starts using it for non-commercial purposes, and if it's commercial, you can publish one game. Right. Unreal is free for any commercial purposes. You can do anything with it. You don't have to pay anything to Unreal. So is Crytek, and Lumberyard is Crytek, but Amazon bought license to it and made it available freely. So all of this come with an editor, and if you are a programmer-friendly guy, and you can start actually programming in it. Has anyone dealt with Unity or with 3D graphics in this area at all? Which one? Unity. So every other engine that's mentioned here is very similar to Unity, except that Unity is the most popular one, and there's a lot more material and help available with Unity as compared to any of these other engines. Sorry. Good question. So each one, you can actually program it in different languages. Unity supports C#, and you can program everything in C#. Unreal is completely C++. So is Crytek and Lumberyard. So all the three, the baseline is C or C++. But it allows you to export to Android or PC or iOS devices. So you have the complete freedom to once you do something, that you can export to any of these platforms. So if you are coming from a web world of kind of scripting, this is a bit far-fetched. In that case, you would want to start off with Unity, where it's a bit more like scripting. You can use JavaScript to actually do something with Unity as well. And then if you are doing a much higher end experience, then you can go to something like Unreal Engine, where it has a more powerful lighting, physics engine, and all this stuff. So once you develop something, how do you kind of go about distributing it? Because with apps, you have the App Store. With you can do it for iOS or Android. And what do you do with VR? Right? For 360 videos, you can of course release it on YouTube. But if you're doing a real experience with VR, how do you release it? So Oculus has its own store. You can release it on the Oculus Store, and then there's something called a Steam VR, which HTC, which Oculus also supports. So it's like a common platform that's available, where you can release your games, you can release your experiences on Steam VR, and you can even exactly do like how Google Play does, and you can do an in-app purchase and so on. You can of course do an app and release it on Google Play. Now Google started something called as a Daydream section, where this list VR apps separately. So when you put on your Google Cardboard and you go to the Play Store, it will take you to the VR Play Store and not the regular Play Store. And this is something very, very helpful, because now suddenly your apps is in this container and not in this whole world wide of space. And promotion is always the hardest thing. If you want to promote your app, if you want to promote your experience, it will always cost you money. It's just not enough that you start developing the app and then you put it on the Play Store, but for it to catch up, You have to, of course, spend money on digital marketing. You have to spend money on, this is something that I learned. So we did a game called Bob's Action Hero, and we spent nearly 3 months developing the game. And then we put it on the App Store, and we said, oh, you know, somebody will start downloading it, and by tomorrow it will be something like a Flappy Bird and so on. But the learning from it was, you spend less money on developing something and more money on marketing it, especially for games or experiences. Right? You better spend on Facebook marketing, you better spend on social media marketing rather than just on the technology. So some more gyan, right? I'm not done. I have a few more minutes. So some more gyan on what could be done and what not, right? So VR and AR, they really require very high bandwidth. So when you are doing an experience, think about connectivity. Right? If it's mobile, then you better do it in big cities and not in small cities. You want to do it where 4G network is typically available, or you provide some form of connectivity to the end users. And there's always a question of, will the battery last for a very long time? So anything in VR, even if you play videos, it consumes battery. So VR is consuming 4 times more battery than a video that you can play. Or even sometimes, you know, depending on that kind of graphics, it can consume even 8x more battery than what you're typically. So if you run VR for 30 minutes, you'll see that your battery is already down by 50 to 60%. It's so high on consumption. If you're doing anything with Oculus or HTC, put it in a controlled environment. If you think that there's a huge surge of crowd that's coming in, then you want to put it on a big screen with a few people experiencing it. So whatever the people experience, you can look at it on the big screen, and then you attract more people. So this is my contact. If you have any questions, if you have any queries, you can always contact me. It was a bit fast, but this was, you know, kind of wanted to run through everything that's possibly and provide you some encouragement into doing VR stuff. There's probably in every city you will see a lot of animation studios, a lot of animation classes that's happening, and there are a lot of 3D guys who are already doing stuff in CAD/CAM and so on. So what I would encourage is first start taking this 3D stuff and see how you can put it on mobile, and then take a cardboard, use it, show it to your friends, and people really get excited. I showed it to my grandmother, a 360 video, and she was very, very excited. You know, although she had to put on the glasses, it was a bit cumbersome, but it was a joy. And it's these small things that kind of help promote the new technologies, and it gives you this feeling that you've promoted something, and this joy. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Harsha. It's been a very content-rich presentation, and in the audience we have some practitioners in Calcutta also. They are sitting in the audience. So would someone really like to ask some question on 360-degree video, some virtual reality, augmented reality? Yeah, mic please there.
Hi, I have 2 questions. The first being, do you really see wired virtual reality or augmented reality being successful or being mainstream? Because as long as you're connected to wires, the immersive experience is not going to be immersive. So it has to be wireless at some point of time, to advance. So what's your take on that?
So of course, mobile is much easier, right? So mobile virtual reality will take off first, anywhere that you see. Because it's much easier to distribute, the cost of distribution is much less, but the quality is not that high. You have limitations on what the mobile can do. So a good example to look at, the way to look at it is, for anything to do with the tethered devices, right, which have wires connected to it. The only reason it's connected to the wires is because the performance that it tries to deliver. So if you are working on a PC, your PC comes with a CPU, a separate graphics processor, and then there's a whole lot of memory associated with it. The biggest phone and the largest phone that you can get today, has again a processor and has this CPU, GPU, but they both use the same memory, and your constraint is the battery. So no matter how big a phone you get, your battery might exactly last a day. So to answer your question, you will see a much larger audience for mobile in the very short term, but in the longer term, as these tethered devices become more powerful in the sense that they are able to provide much better performance without the PC, you will see that these headsets will become standalone devices and not connected to a PC, for example.
But as of now, the primary devices are the Oculus and the HTC Vive, from what I know, and both of them rely on very powerful GPUs in order to run effectively, if at all. And most of these GPUs are beyond the purchasing power of the normal individual over here. So, do you think that's another roadblock for VR or AR to be mainstream over here?
That's a huge roadblock, actually. So
maybe not in India in the first place?
Yeah, it's I just wanted to go back. So this is the typical setup, right? What you were talking about. And in this setup, you really require a high-end GPU, which is shown, which is Titan in that case. And this GPU itself costs about $800. This is
more actually, as far as I know.
Yeah, at least the lowest end one, right? This is typically the budget that we have for our laptop that we want to buy.
Exactly.
So it's in India, it's really not for individuals right now, but mostly for corporations, enterprises, or even brands to invest in an Oculus or an HTC and then try to do something with it. So if you are a technologist, if you are an entrepreneur, the medium for India is mobile. So if you would be spending a lot of time, effort, and money into something which would not have an immediate market for whatever you do today, it's just because of cost reasons. And even to get hold of these devices, it takes a long time because there are just very few manufactured, and there's a long queue that you would want to procure one. So does that answer?
Yep, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, the mic here, please.
Hello, hi. I have a question regarding making, because you were mentioning making content, VR content. I'm actually a filmmaker, and for me, like all the technicalities aside, it's very interesting for me as a content platform, a way to actually create videos and stuff in a very different sensory experience. So what would you say is how complicated is it actually to realize a full-length feature film using this technology, like VR technology? I know you were talking about the 360-degree videos, and I've seen a bunch of them online, but you have to like scroll and kind of push your way through and see what's surrounding, but you don't really move yourself. You're seeing things moving around you, but you personally don't move as much. So is that going to be a problem? Because I heard that people are trying to bridge that gap and make long content for using this technology, but I'm not sure how they would realize that. I thought maybe you know a little bit about that.
So very good question, right?
So you have a very small audience, but quality audience.
Yeah, very good. So very good question, right? So if you really want to start, to answer the first part of your question, when you really want to start, don't venture into a full-length film, right? right? Try to do 30 seconds to a minute video, because like I said, from a director's viewpoint, it's just not one thing that's happening directly in front of your eyes, but you want to capture around, even at the back of your eyes, what's happening. And from a cinematography point of view, that's really very hard to visualize, not only for what you want to shoot, but also from an audience perspective, as where do you want the audience to focus on at what point in time. And like you said, currently it is, you have to put this on and you have to move around to look at what's happening, and then there is motion around you. But you're not physically walking into a space forward or backward to look at something. So there is a roller coaster video, or there's like a flying video, somebody on a parachute put on this 360 camera and is dropping from the top, but you're not dropping along with him to enjoy the 360 footage. So there's a company called John VR, which is trying to do full 360 cinematic experience, and they raised a lot of money. They raised 180 million for what they want to do, and they have been now, Disney invested into them because they built a technology where you can not only capture the 360 view, but they also built a platform where you can experience this 360 view, right? So you can actually get on their platform, which is not yet public, but you can also, the sensory perception is there while getting this camera capture.